Hello, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Special Report 2019 Email Security Trends. I'm Amber Noble, a marketing specialist at Barracuda MSP, and I'm happy to be moderating today's session. Today, I'm joined by Mark Balagier, a systems engineer here at Barracuda MSP with more than 10 years experience in the IT field. He possesses incredible insight into both the hardware and software side of the business. During today's educational webinar, Mark will walk us through key findings of our latest report and what steps you can take to build and implement new strategies for your customers' protection. Before we get started, some brief housekeeping. During the webinar, if you have any questions, feel free to share them using the questions or chat panels to the right of the Zoom webinar screen. At the conclusion of the webinar, you'll be prompted to complete a brief polling survey. Please take a moment to tell us what you think so we can continually improve the content and quality of our online events. There will also be 2 polling questions throughout the webinar. Please take part. Now, without further ado, I'd like to hand it over to Mark to begin today's presentation. Take it away, Mark.
Thanks, Amber. So I appreciate everyone joining. The first thing we want to do is talk a little bit about the report and what it involved. So we went around and surveyed about, 660 participants, from executives to individual contributors, managers, really anyone responsible for email security from various size companies. And so we got all their feedback and we kind of put it together to kind of see what people were thinking and talking about in the way of email security trends. So the goal here was to get some kind of real world data to see what people were dealing with, to understand what their experiences were and how they kind of took on email security and what they were responsible for. And so by getting this feedback from all these users, we had some really great findings. So kind of overall, it's the advanced email attacks. Those are perpetually a problem for everyone. It's stressing IT people out. It's causing productivity loss. It's causing disruption to the business. And it's really troublesome for everyone. And so how this kind of happens a lot of times is due to phishing, as I'm sure everyone is aware. And we just kind of, getting this feedback, are kind of understanding that where Barracuda focuses from our security portfolio standpoint is really in line with what people are worrying about and how these attacks are continuously evolving as bad actors are continuously trying to get into different environments. So first thing we can talk about email security. Some of the people we pulled, well, all the people we pulled here, most of them agree that they're feeling more secure compared to 12 months ago, which is a good sign. It means people are embracing security, understanding that those threats are out there, and wanting to kind of stay up to date on things as they are coming out and being protected from those malicious factors. So the thing that we come up with is that phishing and ransomware are the top of the list. No surprise there. That's kind of the most dangerous piece in terms of what those ramifications are, as far as, if you get your data all completely locked or accounts get compromised, it becomes very dangerous. So this is kind of hopefully not a shock, but just a reminder, unfortunately, that pretty much everyone's getting attacked. It doesn't matter what size your company is. It doesn't matter where you're located. It doesn't matter what your business is. Everyone is constantly being attacked, and attackers are just going after whatever they can to get money. So really, it doesn't matter to them. It's just a mouse click away. So they really don't care. The troublesome part is the impact, though. So you see the highest one here is the loss of employee productivity. Fortunately, you see on the bottom, 26%, there was no impact. So the hope there is that the managers or IT professionals were able to do some remediation. So they found out about some sort of compromise and were able to do some remediation before the attacker was able to gather enough information to do any damage. So that's comforting. But you see, like I said, at the top is that loss of productivity and disruption. It's still taking a toll. And so you like to see that 26%, you hope it goes higher, but unfortunately it's just the way of business with these attacks. And like I mentioned before, the top one is that these email attacks keep people up at night. So you see the top two, job stress, bad, losing sleep at night because they're not at work, and thinking about these threats is troublesome for sure. And so, like I said, you see the bottom, the yellow one is nice, the 27%, but IT is unfortunately, as many people know, kind of a thankless profession. So if everything's working perfectly, you don't even need to know who the IT person is. But if the email gets hacked, if someone gets ransomed, then all of a sudden you're the most important person in the room. And so you see this stress level going way, way up because of these attacks. This question asking what types of security technology do you have in place today? You see the bottom three kind of highlighted here because they're not addressed. So pretty much everyone these days is going to have a malware filter, basic email security set up, but really it's these bottom three that attackers are going after because they understand that not a lot of people are prepared to deal with that. And so that's the reason they're taking the time to sort of customize attacks, try to infiltrate really anywhere they can, do a lot of social engineering that's going to get around that traditional type of filter and get them to that organization. So now we can talk a little bit about the phishing and some of the threats from people compromising accounts. So kind of like I just alluded to, pretty much everything's starting with email, and a lot of it's going through social engineering because the human firewall is basically going to be the weakest link of any type of attack. It's no longer really worth an attacker's time to go try to find a vulnerability in a code or a version or anything like that. It's a lot easier for them to send an email that says, "Hey, I'm Microsoft, and we need to update your Outlook credentials. If you could just type those in here, we'll go ahead and make sure there's no interruption to your account." And of course, they're going to get access that way. So as we see, spear phishing is exactly that. It's that social engineered, really particularly crafted email without a payload. So it's not going to be, "Hey, download this file." It's not going to be, "Click this link." It's going to be something that says, "Oh, this is your CEO. Great to see you at that conference we were both at, and I'm traveling right now, so sorry for the weird, rushed email, but I really need to start this business. As soon as I get back, can you buy a bunch of Amazon cards and send them here, or can you wire a bunch of money to this account," that sort of thing. And so that's becoming more and more common as you see here. And then the impact, like I said, always good to look at that yellow bar. Hey, there was no impact 30% of the time, meaning that it was either caught quickly enough or employees were aware enough to report it. But unfortunately, you see the top one, you get your machines infected with something, stolen credentials, and at that point, the attacker's in. And a lot of times, they're going to try to lay low. They're going to try to not make any noise or alert anyone that they've actually gotten into the network, and they're going to watch and wait for that email thread that says, "Hey, we need to transfer millions of dollars," and then they can chime in and say, "Oh yeah, we actually changed our banking information, send it over here." And so that's the troublesome piece. But you see, fortunately, the no impact piece is great. The reality is that might be a lower number because maybe that attacker just hasn't activated anything or taken any sort of action that's noticed yet. So always want to be careful there. The other question we asked, how concerned are you about internal email threats? So data breaches that originate from inside the organization. Really, this is, like I just mentioned, the attacker gets that information from someone, however they got it, spear phishing, social engineering, whatever that might be, and they're kind of laying low. And so you see the concern is definitely there. So the question of how effective are the existing email solutions to address the threats, we see kind of wishy-washy. They sort of work, but it's whatever Microsoft has. We have Microsoft, so we're going to go ahead and say we think it's okay and go from there. So then we start getting to the cost of a breach. So overall cost of the breach, including time spent remediating, communicating, how the business impact, really the majority of people are saying the cost of a breach is increasing. And a lot of this has to do with the complexity of the attacks that are going on. So it's the attacker taking the time to look on LinkedIn and find the organizational chart and find who these users are and go ahead and try to kind of put that all together so that they can infiltrate the organization and then really wait for that that valuable piece of information to come through that they can capitalize on. And so it's just a trend in how much it's costing everyone to do that remediation, because they're pretty crafty about how they do that. So we'll talk now about the monetary cost. Again, good to see that high yellow bar, but still, less than $100,000 for a small medium business. That's quite a bit of money, and so it's tough always to kind of try to recover from that. But it's a constant threat, and it's just something everyone needs to be aware of, that these things are happening, and you hope that it's a ransomware situation where there's insurance or you've got a backup, you're able to recover it, you don't have to pay it. But even still, doing that remediation is costing money based on the time for everyone involved, the time of productivity lost. All these things are a factor. What we're looking at here, though, unfortunately, is direct losses. So there was a wire transfer, or my computer was broken, or stuff that can be immediately calculated. So it doesn't really take into account the intangibles about if that gets out, what does your reputation cost, or how does that damage your relationship with partners, stuff like that. So in a lot of cases, I feel these would be much higher, but these are tangibles that could be measured. And true to form, larger companies are going to report higher monetary losses just because the nature of networking. So if you've got a smaller business, it's easier to track down which person was affected. If you've got a larger company, hey, maybe that email got sent to an entire group and half of them clicked on it, and then half of those people sent them out to other partners that they were working with, and so it just becomes more of a burden to kind of track everything down. But as you can see, the larger the business, the more complex it can be trying to deal with this, and then the monetary cost obviously becomes more. So we have a question. The monthly estimate for losses of business email compromise last year. And give everyone a couple minutes or seconds to think about that. If you want to go ahead and respond. There we go. And it was 300 million. So quite a bit of money lost from business email compromise. And again, it just goes into the tangibles of all of that, saying, not only productivity, but money that was wired, that was lost. That's not taking into account, though, of course, what does that do to your reputation? And we'll talk a little bit about incident response. So this is a good and bad statistic. So the good sign is that, hey, these suspicious emails are being reported to IT. So employees are, in most cases, aware enough to say, hey, this somehow got through our filters. This is not a legitimate email. Let me call IT and make sure that things are going okay. But you still see that 1 to 5 on a typical workday. That's quite a bit. So it's, again, just a reminder that this is a constant threat, and attackers don't get tired because they're getting paid to do it. So this one, a little bit in between, kind of a mixed bag. So the workers are saying, hey, everything's suspicious. They're saying a lot, but what is the actual number of fraudulent emails that are really getting through? So sort of just making more work for IT, because maybe they haven't got all the education that they need to understand if an email is actually fraudulent. And so there's tools out there to go ahead and make them more aware about specifics of what they should be looking for. Because really this statistic just says IT is spending a lot of time going after stuff that isn't fraudulent because people are just not sure, so they reported it. Always a good thing. You always want to make sure that that's happening, but a lot of times it's not actually fraudulent. So there needs to be some better methods in place to possibly automate the process or to educate that end user so they're not really wasting IT's time. And still, you always want to, anything suspicious, always report it. But the more you can educate an end user, the less time IT is going to have to spend dealing with that. And so, kind of on that same vein here, a lot of people in the IT are kind of mixed. They're saying, hey, some underreport, some overreport, but overall, not a huge chunk of people are actually really good at identifying those suspicious emails. And going a step further, how long does it take to investigate and remediate that attack? So, hey, if it's under an hour, no problem, not a big deal. I can take a look at it. Hey, this is legit. Hey, this is malware. We'll pull it off the server. But then you start getting into that 1 to 3 hours or more than a day, and that becomes a big hit on productivity. So how we want to take a look at incident response today. So the first thing we do is that we have to identify that attack. And so a lot of times the user is not going to always report that attack. The investigation's potentially going to take a while, and then the IT is going to be pulled away from whatever their normal day-to-day is. And so we're seeing that as being over 30 minutes just to kind of handle that, to respond to an email request from someone saying, hey, this is fraudulent, or what's going on here. Next thing, the manual portion of it. So they get that email that says, hey, I think I got a malicious email. Here it is. Can you take a look? So now they have to go search through that email to see what was malicious. They have to search through the rest of the email for the company to see if anyone else got that same email. If people were concerned and thought they were attacked, they unplug their systems and disconnect from the network to isolate it. Always a good practice, but that means that IT professional has to go in and manually look at that computer, have it in their hands to physically deal with that. And so all that can add up to a couple hours in itself. And then after they figure it out, they have to respond. Do we need to delete that email? Do we need to quarantine that email? Do we need to re-image this machine? All those things that go along with getting that user back up and running from whatever happened, if there was something malicious. And we're seeing that take 1 to 4 hours. And so you kind of put that all together, and you're seeing 3 to 8 hours for every incident that occurs. And so that's a whole day. So you've got someone. Do you have someone on your IT staff who's able to go ahead and spend their entire work week just dealing with email threats? Unless you're a very large company with pretty significant budgets, it's really doubtful. So this kind of all gets put into that stress bucket that we were talking about earlier. And so as you can see here, not having the tools to automate the process or to educate the end users can perpetuate the spread of attacks, because not everything is going to be addressed because of just the amount of time it takes to deal with each of these threats. Something may get passed over, and then the next thing you know, everyone's infected or dealing with this issue. So, talking about Office 365, having a little fun here. The cloud, the famous buzzword, everything's in the cloud. Hope you're not afraid of heights here. And now we have a question again. What % of businesses are citing the biggest blocker to O365 migration being security? All right, survey says 37%. So people, even though they're migrating to Office 365, they're still concerned about security. Of course, when things are on premises, you have to keep that updated and dealt with, but you also have to you also get to have control over it. So you don't have to worry about, oh, it's in the cloud and what's Microsoft security like, or what are they protecting, or do they have the tools that I need to go ahead and protect my business? And so as you can see here, the biggest concerns with O365, That very small yellow bar says I have no concerns, but kind of the usual suspects here: spam and malware, spear phishing, losing data, ransomware, all really, really concerning to people who are doing that integration. And so kind of what came out of that is that pretty much everyone agrees, the majority of people agree that a third party is really going to be necessary for security. So Microsoft is very concerned about their servers, their infrastructure, making sure that everything is kept up to date and secure in that sense. They provide some basic security, but they don't really care about who has access to which email account or what information is emailed from one account to another or who's accessing that. So they care about their infrastructure and making sure that it's all working. But as far as individual organizations and how that's secure and who emailed what and all that, not really something that they're super really involved in or into it. It's really not their strong suit. So that's why people are kind of figuring out that you need to add some additional security for that reason. But like I said, Microsoft does a great job at email. It makes it so much easier for everyone doing O365. You've got your email in the cloud. You don't have to worry about it. You can recover it to a certain point. It's just a lot less maintenance and makes things flexible. And so we're seeing that huge growth. But like I'm saying, the native security is just not truly effective. So we want to move beyond simply just having that email gateway. So kind of a layered approach is really what's going to be required here. So we want to make sure that you have your advanced threat protection built in. So Microsoft does have this offering, making sure that these links aren't malicious or going to some site that it doesn't say it is. All this protection built into that email filter, making sure that you're providing protection. But again, the tough part is that social engineering can go right around that. It can make a phone call and say, "Oh yeah, we're Microsoft and we're just updating your account. If you could just give me your username and password, we'll get on that." Or we can spoof an email that says, "Yeah, we're doing some maintenance. We don't want you to lose connection to your email, so just send us your email and password, and you won't have to worry about it." So that's unfortunately the tough part. So you need the protection from that. And so what we're talking about is the defense in depth strategy. This is a layered approach to security. So you've got on the bottom here, you see you've got your O365 or you've got your G Suite, whatever that might be. Building on top of that, you have your gateway defense. That's your spam filter, your malware filter, anything like that. You want to have the capability to do encryption so that if you're sending secure information, you want to keep that in an encrypted environment so people can view it and respond to it, whatever they need. Beyond that, cloud backup, email continuity. So if for some reason that email server goes down, we can go ahead and spool that email for you. Make sure you don't lose any business that way. If someone does have an issue where they get compromised, you've got the cloud backup to go ahead and be able to recover that. Inbox defense, this is a really critical piece. So this is being able to determine spear phishing using an automated process to go ahead and review all the emails that are in that environment to see if there's any anomalies. Hey, maybe this person never sends emails at this particular time or doesn't send from this account or doesn't log in from this certain location. Anything like that, we've automated that process to be able to provide protection. And then ensuring that you have DMARC. So DMARC, for anyone who's not familiar, is basically email technology to protect your reputation. It was pioneered by PayPal to go ahead and make sure that no one is able to send emails from your domain on your behalf. So PayPal was in a situation where people were getting emails saying, "Hey, we're PayPal, please update your account information. Click here and then put in that information." People got really upset because they were saying, "Hey, I did that," and all of a sudden my PayPal account's empty. Unfortunately, they were phished. PayPal had nothing to do with it, but in the customers' minds, PayPal got hacked. It was PayPal's fault, and they had to deal with that. So DMARC is something very important to take a look at. And then, of course, on the top here, you see the security awareness, making sure that all users are aware of of all the different types of threats and attacks that are out there, and constantly keeping them educated about what they should be suspicious of. And so you shift that into products from Barracuda. So the resilience and gateway defense, all covered in Barracuda Essentials. And so that's going to be, again, your backup, your archiving, and your spam and malware filter, as well as the encryption services put in there. Barracuda Sentinel, doing a lot of artificial intelligence to understand, even if emails have no payloads, if they are being, if that person is being spoofed and someone's asking for information that could lead to loss of funds or wire transfer, something like that. And so we can take care of that in an automated process. And then Phishing is our managed offering to provide all of the MSP customers with continuous education about what they should be aware of. Also with kind of some self-spoofing, self-phishing, trying to spoof people with different emails and phish them to see, hey, how susceptible are they to actually clicking on a phishing email. The good news is that if they do, in fact, click on a link in one of those phishing emails, nothing bad's going to happen. They're just going to get some education and saying, hey, you shouldn't have clicked on this email because of X, Y, and Z. So really valuable to constantly maintain that education level, and then we can go ahead and provide that for you without you having to run a campaign. We've got professionals who put them together constantly, and then can set everything up on the back end and then just deliver you the report, so you don't have to do a lot of the legwork there. And then kind of all-encompassing is the forensics and incident response. This is a tool that kind of takes information from Sentinel as well as Essentials to understand, hey, this was a reported malicious email. We can see all of the users that got it. We can see what users clicked on the link if there was a link inside that email. As a colleague says, it's kind of the panic button. So if something comes through, we see someone's compromised, oh crap, where else did that email go? Let's pull it off away from everyone, and then we can deal with the situation as fast as possible. And so a lot of horn tooting, but you don't have to take our word for it. We've done quite well as far as being a leader in email security, and we're continuing to develop all of that technology. So customer support is the last one that I'll mention on this. Available 24/7. Simply give us a call, and we're here to help you whenever you need it. Another great feature is our email threat scanner. So totally free. You can go ahead and run this on any O365 mailbox. You'll see what's potentially sitting there latent in people's inboxes, and you can go ahead and use that as a valuable tool with the report generated to show them, hey, you do need some additional email security because there's a whole lot of potential for something bad to happen just by checking out that email inbox. And if you need any more information, feel free to contact us. I'll leave this slide up for a little bit, but that pretty much wraps up the presentation. So really appreciate everyone joining. Thank you very much.